What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. If you guys have not seen the pulls that we did on the Kizuna Clash Sugo Fest featuring Perospero, you should go ahead and check those out, as we were lucky enough to pull this guy right here, Edward Newgate. Now, I've already made a previous video. When he initially released, I didn't have him on my account just yet. We used him as a friend captain to clear a piece of content. I gave a brief overview of my opinions on the character at that point in time, but this time around, now that we have the character, I've used him in a couple of different pieces of content. Content where he receives cooldown at the start of the quest, and then content where he doesn't, and you really have to go out of your way in order to build teams for this guy. You know, he's not a very easy character to build for normal content. We'll talk more about it as we go along, but let's go ahead and talk about the clips real quick. We got 2 arenas, and then we got 2 GARP challenges. We got 1 versus Worst Generation, and then we have Revolutionary Army number 2, so somewhat of a difficult piece of content. The arenas are very interesting to team build for because the cooldown is such a big issue when you opt to use Whitebeard as a captain. If you do choose to use him as a crewmate, it's definitely much easier to use him and you can get the most out of his abilities, but obviously he has some issues as a captain. So speaking of that captain, what does he actually do? So Whitebeard as a captain is going to state that he halves your HP at the start of the quest. However, he does provide you with a 1.5 times health boost, and he says that if you are above 50% health at the start of the attack, then you only get a 5 times boost, only a 5 times boost for Dex Striker Powerhouse, and he does 250 times his attack in Dex damage to all enemies at the end of the turn. Pretty decent, but then he says that if you are below 50%, then the 5 times attack is buffed to 5.5, and then the end of turn damage is also buffed from 250 times his attack to 400 times his attack, essentially becoming like V1 Kaido. I believe V1 Kaido had that same multiplier of 400 times his attack as end of turn damage, so he's essentially like a new upgraded version of Kaido. Now, I'd put an asterisk on that upgraded version because there is a big issue with his captain, and while it seems good on paper, in actual practice there are big issues. The main issue obviously being the cooldown, because if you have end of turn damage as a captain, you're continuously killing these enemies, meaning you're getting to the boss stages faster, which is cool, but you don't have cooldown, so you can't use any specials and you just straight up lose. So you'll see that in these 2 arena clips, we're running very obscure teams, and the reason for it is mainly due to the cooldown. So we're using Super Tandem Kid as the friend, a very good captain and good synergy between these 2 characters. Obviously Whitebeard, if you guys don't know, he is more of an orb boosting character. He does have the potential to provide an attack boost, but Kid is an attack booster, he does orb change, and he just works very well. But the Kid providing -3 cooldown at the start of the quest, and then because we run a full team of different colors for our strikers, we can then opt to use the German 66 ship, which provides -2 cooldown at the start of the quest, with the caveat of having 1 of every type on the crew. So very difficult to fulfill, but by doing that we can have much more cooldown on the team. So you can use double Whitebeard, but I think in most cases using double Whitebeard is probably a detriment for you to actually clear that content with. He actually would hybrid very well with a lot of other powerful units, and he does synergize well with a lot of other powerful units. Obviously the New Year's characters with versus Kaido, versus Yamato, New Year's Nami of course, all of those being strikers, Whitebeard himself also being a striker. He just has great synergy, and there's a lot of different units you can use as a friend captain with this guy. But obviously the cooldown being such a big issue, you probably want to stick to using him as a crewmate, or only using him on content where he actually receives vast arrays of cooldown at the start of the quest. If you do opt to use Whitebeard as a captain though, you do get access to his superclass special, which is a superclass striker, which we actually have had quite a lot of those recently. But his superclass effect states that in order to activate it, you do need 1 of his other crew members on the team, which can range from, you know, Marco, Jozu, Vista, Wadi Bay, Fossa, Rakuyo, King Du, Atmos, as well as Marshall D. Teach, but it also ranges to Kozuki Odin, Izo, Dogstorm, and Cat Viper. So I do like that there is a pretty wide spectrum of characters you can use, as well as I do like the fact that there is an additional condition where even if you don't have any of those characters on your crew, as long as you reach 30% HP, you will be able to use the superclass effect. The effect itself though, in my opinion, should have had something a little extra done to it. It does provide 500 times his attack and dex damage to all enemies, which is definitely good, but I mean, just damage and the effect to extend orb boosts by 2 turns it definitely is lacking. I mean, compared to some of the other super classes that we have in this game, it's just not that great. I mean, at least it does do the extension of the orb boost by 2 turns. You know, you have a character like Legend Smoker, which unfortunately got the short end of the stick with his super type special only providing 1 turn extension, and I assume that when Smoker gets a 6+, he's going to be a lot better. But the super class special of Whitebeard, it's just really not that good. Then we can go ahead and move on to his special. Now his special is going to be very important, obviously, because you can actually use him as a crewmate on a lot of different teams. You don't have to worry about, you know, not getting your cooldowns for your specials or anything like that. The effect for his special is actually really interesting, and I think that it definitely paves the way for some interesting content in the future, because the special ability provides a 20% health cut to all enemies and ignores all defensive effects, and it ignores normal attacks only. So I believe, to my recollection, this is the first health cut that goes through normal attacks only, which is extremely powerful. Obviously in Kizuna clashes this is going to be great, with the exponential health increases. Being able to cut that health guaranteed by 20% is very good. Obviously there is the issue with the enemies potentially having the Grey Shield buff. For those who don't know, the Grey Shield prevents health cutting effects from occurring, so they can just, you know, do whatever they want but have a Grey Shield, which means Whitebeard's health cut literally does nothing. But still, the fact that it is a 20% health cut that always will occur is something nice to have in the future. And then in terms of the actual boosting effects, he gives an orb boost to Dex, Striker, and Powerhouse, 2.75 for 1 turn, and it also goes on to say that if the crew already has an orb boost when you launch the special, he provides a 2.5 times attack boost to the same classes and color for 2 turns that attack boost is. So that's pretty neat. I like the reduced redundancy of having an orb boost, but if you have one already, then you can get an attack boost instead. Just makes him a little bit more flexible. It does go on to state though that if you have more than 50% HP when you launch the special, you get a 70% damage reduction for 1 turn, so that's pretty neat. But if you're below 50% HP when you launch the special, you get a 90% damage reduction effect. And remember that you could use like versus Yamato, for example, with this in tandem with her percent damage reduction based attack boost, you can get a 1.9 additional bonus damage rather than the versus effect of Yamato, which only gives you a 60% damage reduction. So either way, it's good synergy with one of those New Year's legends. It does also go on to state that if you do launch the special below 50%, not only do you get the 90% damage reduction, it will also further increase any attack and orb boost that you have by 0.25, and it does include the orb or attack boost that you use with his special. So essentially, you will always want to launch the special when you're below 50% because you're going to get the most out of his effect. But even if you use it at like full HP, you're still getting either a really good orb boost or a really solid attack boost. So no real complaints with his special, but I think due to the lack of cooldown in this character's kit, a cooldown reduction effect in his special, or even in his super class special, probably would have been a nice addition in my personal opinion. Furthermore, another really disappointing component of this character is the Super Tandem. Now, Super Tandems are pretty powerful effects that sometimes, while they can be really difficult to activate, they provide so much additional damage to the crew that going out of your way in order to proc it is kind of worth it. However, in Whitebeard's case, I don't know if it's actually worth it. At Super Tandem level 5, you need 2 of the characters that are listed, which are any of his crewmates, or, you know, the Odins, the Izos, Dog, Cat. Essentially, any of the characters that are required for his super class special, you need 2 of those on the crew to activate the Super Tandem. And the effect itself provides, at level 5 mind you, a 1.75 times attack boost to Striker and Powerhouse, and a 1.5 increased damage taken on the enemy's side of the field. Now, when you stack these 2 multipliers together, a 1.75 attack and a 1.5 increased damage taken, yes, this actually is a really strong amount of damage that is going to be added to the crew. But the problem is the increased damage taken doesn't even go through full immunity. So that's obviously a big issue, and the fact that full immunity is relatively common. So that means that at level 5 you're only getting a 1.75 Super Tandem, and for the amount of characters you have to put on the crew in order to achieve this, not a big fan of it. I think that they could have left it and then only required one of the characters, and then one of the additional characters being a Striker or a Powerhouse probably would have sufficed. Alternatively, they could have lowered the increased damage taken multiplier but make it go through all immunity buffs probably would have been a nice change as well. But the fact that there are going to be in a lot of different situations where you're not even going to be able to get the full multipliers of your super tandem means that I feel like this is probably one of the least valuable super tandems to max out, unfortunately, as it is. I don't know what they were doing, what they were cooking in the kitchen in regards to this character when you compare it to Rayleigh and Gaban. These two characters releasing in the same batch, but Rayleigh and Gaban just have so much more versatility and flexibility to be put on so many different teams, and then you have this Whitebeard that's so shoehorned in with the rest of his batch, and the effects that he kind of provides don't really provide all that much at the end of the day. So overall, a lot of the different effects that this Whitebeard has are really, really disappointing. And then finally, the last thing I want to touch up on is the support effect of the character. Now, the support effect attaches to all of the same characters that are required for his superclass, aside from the Wano batch. So it's just, you know, Marco ranging all the way to Atmos. And the effect will state that if you use the special of the character that you support, you get a 2x attack boost only for the supported character, and you get a 50% damage reduction for 1 turn. So we've seen supports like this in the past, characters like Sengoku, Legend Buggy, etc. These effects that give just a mass multiplier to one character, and you know, sometimes they can be useful, no doubt, but more often than not, these types of supports aren't that great. And while yes, you get the attack boost, you do also receive a 50% damage reduction, which I suppose could be useful depending on the scenario that you're in. But I think overall, just even the support effect, I think is kind of underwhelming. It's just, I don't really understand what they were thinking. I think a really cool effect with the support that this character should have had is maybe like an end of turn damage effect that attached to, you know, Marco, Jozu, Vista, Rakuyo, etc. A Blackbeard character. Having a support that could do end of turn damage would be infinitely more valuable than a 2x attack boost to one character. Something like that would have been a little bit more interesting, I think. So yeah, this character definitely should receive some more tweaks, and we'll have to wait and see. This character, you know, will get a super evolution at some point down the line, and I'm sure, you know, many years from now when he does receive a super evolution, he's going to be amazing. But as of right now, this is going to be in the same kind of book as the Linlin that we actually got last year. Very disappointing unit with a bad design that essentially never sees play. So unfortunately, Whitebeard does need a little bit more buffs for him to be a little bit more usable in content. But that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.